All right, come on in, everybody. Welcome back to the Tennessee Holler. I am Justin. TNHoller.com is where you can find us, at the TN Holler on Twitter and Facebook. We also have hollers hollering all across the state thanks to your support. We really do appreciate it. Your small dollar monthly donations keep us going. And we want to send shouts out to Abby Rubenfeld. If you need a lawyer, Abby is who you should reach out to. Elisa Parker, if you need a house. AJ Martin, if you need some jewelry. We appreciate their support, and it really does keep us going. Today, we are joined by someone who is doing something that I did a few years back. I ran for Congress here in Tennessee. I did not win. Our district has since been redrawn. It is now the 5th district, and Maryam Abolfazli is running for the seat against Andy Ogles here in my district where I live. Maryam, how are you?
I'm excellent. Thanks, Justin. Thanks for having me. And thank you for keeping up the work even after you ran. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. So I guess tell us a little bit about why you decided to do this. I just, so people know, you and I have known each other a while. I spend a lot of time up at the Capitol, and Miriam's up there probably as much, if not more, than I am. So, it's nice when people who are actually doing the work of being up there at the Capitol, making their voice heard, decide to throw their hats in the ring. Maryam isn't someone who just kind of came out of nowhere and parachuted in and said, "Hey, I want to run for Congress." This is somebody that's been up there a lot, pushing back. So how did you decide to go from, resisting at the Capitol to jumping in?
If you don't mind, I want to back up just a little bit and tell people
Sure.
who I am, and then
Yeah.
it leads to why I'm running.
Go ahead.
So if that helps. So I'm the child of immigrants that came here, like most, to make a better life for their kids and for our broader family. And so I was raised with a few values, one of which was sacrifice. That's really deep in me, and it's very much in my family that we sacrifice for the better good. We did a lot so that we could all do better, and not just my immediate family, but my cousins and aunts and uncles and friends and family. So I was really raised by people that believe that everyone deserves that level of sacrifice so that we can all come up together. I was also raised with a lot of authenticity. I had to determine very young who I was, because I didn't look like a lot of the kids in my classroom in 1980s, Brentwood or Nashville. And so my parents really encouraged me to figure out who I was. And that really helped to figure that out early. We also had a big value of hard work. Most of this stuff was unspoken, by the way. We didn't have long conversations about this. It was just kind of, I saw them do it. Most nights I went to bed seeing my mother working very, very hard. So hard work is just ingrained in us. They had a small business. We were always at the shop. It was just who we were. And then finally, and probably the biggest reason why I'm running, is the family values I grew up with. We grew up with a big family. Cousins were like siblings, and we just believe very much in doing almost anything for family. And we're very kid-centric in our family. We kind of love our children a lot, and that's pretty much why you saw me at the legislature so much. So I was when I moved back to Nashville, I got engaged at the metro level and at the state level, as a board of one organization, Awake, at the state level, and then as the chair of the Metro Human Relations Commission at the metro level. And basically, when the Covenant tragedy happened, I was like, we got to do something now. And for those that are not ready to be active now, that's fine, that are grieving, but I think we need to grieve or whatever together. So we had that rally. The rest is history, as you know. I remember you there that day and recording everything. And then after that, I started Rise and Shine Tennessee, which was kind of, I guess in a lot of ways, subconsciously in the works for a while. And it was pursuing opportunity, freedom, and safety of all Tennesseans. I wanted people to rise and shine, not rise and live under the radar, particularly children. And then I was in that way. We wanted everyone to be civically engaged, and that meant to be at the legislature while they're passing bills and discussing bills. So one day I was in committee And we were looking at a Democratic representative brought a bill for women who had been assaulted, and for them to have the choice whether to have the child that was a result of that assault. And it was the first time that I ever heard GOP in person talk about women in this way. And one of the representatives started to talk, one of the GOP representatives. And basically, as I sat there, and I had heard a lot, and I was pretty tough skinned. I'd been through, once you've been there, you kind of know what to expect. Well, this shocked me. He basically, what he said was, in not in these exact terms, but this is what I took away, was that women at best were baby factories, and at worst, disposable. I mean, like, their lives were not of value. And for me, becoming a mother, I've done a lot in my life. I'm very proud of my accomplishments and the things I've failed at, being in Afghanistan at 24. But becoming a mother was the hardest and most rewarding thing I ever did, spiritually, physically, emotionally. And to hear him say that shocked me. It made me shudder. I remember leaving the committee, going into a corner, finding a corner, and just starting to weep. And a friend came and just put her hand on my back. And I think in that moment, having heard what they truly believe about women and women's freedoms and just safety and health, I think that was the moment that things shifted for me, that I had to do more than just show up, I had to do more than just organize. Something else more urgent was needed. And then, as that was simmering inside me, Alabama passed the IVF ruling. And it just slowly started to build inside me that they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. It wasn't just abortion. It's not just IVF. It's not just contraception. Marsha Blackburn's talking about birth control. They're already talking about no-fault divorces. I don't know what is in their grand plan. Well, some of it we actually do know because of what they've documented. But I thought, waiting 10 years to run or waiting 4 years, it wasn't a choice. That was the moment. It has to happen now. And I've got to make it happen. And that's what I basically hustled to do.
So Republicans had an opportunity to codify protections for IVF this past session. They blocked that. They didn't take it. So, I think it's fair to worry about IVF going forward. They've also repeatedly blocked standalone bills to allow raped little girls to have abortions. And then there's a Jason Zachary bill that just passed that criminalizes helping raped little girls get abortions in other states. So, women's rights are under attack for sure. It sounds like the overturning of Roe radicalized you in a lot of ways, and I'm sure a lot of people. And I think it's also a big part of why we don't really know what the landscape is right now electorally in the state. We have not had an election since that happened. We haven't had an election really since the Tennessee 3 were expelled. So, I think there's a lot of positives from the perspective of a candidate like you who is running. You don't have a primary, is that right? I know we had Kieran Chupada on a few weeks back, and he had actually stepped out because he thought basically it's your time to run. What's the race looking like before we talk about your Republican opponent?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yes, there are no challengers, which Kieran, what an incredible human being. I loved your interview with him. If anyone hasn't seen that, you should go check that out because it was really powerful. And exactly, he's like, I want to be a model for my daughter. And if there's a woman running that is capable and ready to do this, then I'm going to step aside, which was incredible, truly, and speaks to who he is. And there was another challenger, and he also stepped aside. We don't have a primary challenger, which is great. It's great for the race. It's great for me, so that all of the money and organizing and work that I'm doing can go straight towards winning this general against Andy Ogles. And yes, the legislature will not protect women's freedoms at all. They've made that crystal clear. And I should also add, obviously the reason I was even at the legislature was reproductive freedom, but it was also gun safety. And that's what I had been working quite a bit on. So that's another major reason for me to run. The way that our legislator basically spit in the face of mothers that had been basically advocating for a whole year nonstop for gun safety laws. Basic stuff. No one's trying to take anyone's guns away. I believe there are there are majority responsible gun owners in this state, and they can take care of their guns. This is for those that are not, and they were unwilling to do it. And I thought it was fascinating that despite all that hard work with, I mean, hundreds of mothers and Tennesseans, not just mothers, aunts, uncles, neighbors, whatever, they chose to arm teachers at the end of the session. And what about, you're talking about, we're going to see what happens in these election results. And I am very hopeful, because half the reason I even pursued this is because strangers got in touch, DM'd me and said, please run. And I didn't even know who they were. And the majority were women. So these are mothers that are just fed up, and many, Republican or formerly Republican, that just their party's not representing them anymore. And they need solutions to these scary things. But I will say, after arming teachers and then seeing every county, so many counties decide not to see that through, is quite a slap in the face of our Republican leaders that thought that for some reason, either the TFA or whatever this was a winning issue for them on an election year at the end of session. Like, what a risk to have taken, notwithstanding how harmful and hurtful it was to everyone who had worked so hard. But also just what are you doing? Because clearly this is not popular.
Right. All the common sense gun safety laws people were advocating for, including covenant moms, were ignored. And instead, they passed this Ryan Williams, Paul Bailey bill to arm teachers, which now all of these districts have basically said, no, thank you. It was a reckless, bad idea that is being rejected. And, again, showing that there are some common sense people out there, even in conservative areas throughout this state. And just to put a finer point on it, the guy that you're running against, this was a picture of him and his Christmas card with his family holding up these rifles, which was highlighted when he made his statement about the Covenant shooting. It was in his district, Covenant, and he never met with the Covenant moms. He hid from them. That's who we're dealing with. Andy Ogles is a guy who we call him Pinocchio Ogles or Andy Fogles. He lied on his transcripts or he lied on his resume, basically saying he was an economist, an international sex crimes expert, a cop. This made national news. Basically, this was our version of George Santos. This was actually happening like right as the Santos stuff was happening. So Pinocchio Ogles is our Tennessee Santos, and he's still going. He's had other things like this student protesters bill. He wants to send these protesting students to Gaza. He also horrifically responded to a pro-Palestine protester saying kill them all when she asked him about Palestinian children. And then this was him just yesterday. He is at the trial of Donald Trump wearing in the red tie brigade with all these, as this sign says, bootlickers showing up to support Trump during this, hush money trial, covering up a affair that he had while his wife was pregnant. But Andy Ogles, who holds himself out there as this, moral, guy who represents family values, this is the stuff that he has been doing. So I say all that so you don't have to, but if you want to add anything to who you're running against and what people should know about him, feel free.
I mean, you did a great overview. I hate to say that there's even more. Honestly, he is tough to keep up with because he's constantly doing stuff. I mean, sometimes it's twice a day that we're just saying, oh, Ogles is now, defending appliances again, or Ogles is now, he brought a bill to prevent gag orders for Donald Trump
today.
To the House.
That was today. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the most important thing, we try to highlight that stuff and just clarify for people like why it's wrong, why it's not really what you should be doing in Congress. And so I think the main thing to say is, the point of government and Congress is to make American and Tennessean lives better. Full stop. So when you see the point of your job, which is how I think Andy Ogles sees his job, as bringing very dramatic, divisive, headline bills that, the contents of which are pretty empty, but the names are kind of fun, like Laundry Liberty Act or Go Woke or Go Broke, or stop the invasion, reality TV type of stuff. The point of doing that is not to make American lives better. The point is to be in the press and to stoke anxieties and fears of a small number of people. I don't think Tennesseans have the luxury right now to have someone like that in Congress. We actually have problems. We actually have challenges like women staying alive when they're pregnant and kids being safe from gun violence. And I have to say it, affordability. It's not easy to make ends meet in Tennessee right now, in District 5 right now. It would be great to have someone there that could actually look at those problems and solve those problems. But, proposing a bill so a guy doesn't have a gag order in his criminal case in New York, we got 99 problems and that is not one of them. So that's just how I see it. I mean, the crazy, the kind of wild stuff, it is what it is, but mostly it's just, Tennesseans deserve so much more. They are good people. We are good people. Like, somebody needs to get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that Tennessee is a, Republican place, generally speaking, but is it this? Is this what Republicans in Tennessee want representing them? A guy who is this extreme, who cares so little about making people's lives better. Like, I tend to believe no. And, a lot of the issues that you're talking about, I think there's more common ground than people realize. And Andy Ogles is not interested in finding it even a little bit. He spends all of his time trolling and, trying to trigger people who are of reasonable minds. So I appreciate what you're saying. You've been doing this for a little while now. Tell us what the district is, first of all.
Yeah, great question. So it was deeply gerrymandered, and that's a big word that just means changed around in a kind of unnatural way, putting communities together that don't normally come together, right?
It means politicians choosing voters as opposed to the other way around.
Right. You analyze and you say, okay, if we lump these together, we're definitely going to win, and we're going to win by this much of a margin. So they analyze precinct by precinct and say, okay, these groups go together and these groups. So now Nashville's carved into 3 spots. And then if you look at 7, 6, and 5, -5, it just clumps a bunch of different vast geographies together. Now, there's an advantage to that. Someone like me, who was raised by a father who loved road trips and loves going out in Tennessee, kind of has a blast with this district. We go all the way to Mount Juliet. So we're in Wilson County, Mount Juliet to Lebanon to Hermitage, down into Antioch, where I was today, up into Green Hills, into Belmead, Bellevue, and then down into Williamson County, like Brentwood, carve out Franklin. Just do a big carve over Franklin, come down to Nolensville, and then all the way into Murray County, Marshall County, and Lewis County. So down to Columbia and Hohenwald. So yeah, pretty random, obviously, except to give that margin, that Republican margin, which makes it anti-democratic, right? They're trying to structurally stop us from having a fair democracy and just having. But despite that, because of their policies, because of the way that they're behaving, being so divisive and hateful and cruel, Tennesseans see it. They see it for what it is, regardless of what party they come from or what they've culturally been raised in. They see what's going on, and not only the hatefulness and the divisiveness, but also just not getting down to policy solutions. And so when I go around, I meet with a lot of folks. They might have a D next to their name, they might have an R next to their name, but we talk about the real issues that are bothering all of us together. And so in some ways, this GOP and Andy Ogles has unified us. And I think people are really ready for change and hope and a difference because we deserve it.
So, that gerrymandering is a really anti-democratic process. And right now, it does seem like democracy is hanging by a thread in many different ways. In many ways, we've already lost it in Tennessee just based on some of the things that have happened. How concerned are you about? I mean, I will just full disclosure, like, I'm very concerned about, and I'm an optimistic person in general, but I have a lot of dread about where we're headed as a country here. Obviously, Trump is running again. Where are you in terms of how dire the situation is, and how loud to sound the alarm about where our country is headed. How much of a part of what you're doing as a candidate is that?
Ooh, yes, I would say why I'm running is that deep concern. Um, we in Tennessee are like the testing ground for so much of these anti-democratic policies. And if you're in and day out of the legislature, you experience it even more. So that's where I was, that's where I was. And so all my thinking and marinating, I think, was coming from just, wow, they don't want checks and balances. They don't want three branches of government.
Literally.
I testified twice on that bill. Just so many things. Oh, no protests on bridges, no First Amendment rights in this way. Tennesseans shouldn't be able to come to Chancery Court if they have an issue, just on and on and on. And so when you see that, oh, they're just beginning. I mean, this is just the beginning. This isn't the end of the project. This is the beginning. And it's this gradual curtailing of rights and voice. And so I think it's very serious. I think it's deeply serious. And Tennessee has seen it a little sooner than a lot of other states. And I'm running because I want to stop it. I want to stop the bleeding. I want to stop this drastic, very rapid rush to end our democracy. And honestly, my parents come from a country where things happen almost overnight. So I don't take for granted how quickly women's freedoms can be taken away, how quickly our rights in general can be taken away. I truly take so much gratitude and value in what American values are, and the Constitution and our institutions. And I think that we've got to fight really hard to keep them as they were intended to be.
Yeah, I share your concern. And I think you're absolutely right that Tennessee is the tip of the spear when it comes to culture war stuff. We may not be a swing state, but we're absolutely a place where they figure out what they can do and accomplish and then export it to the rest of the country. And that's why Tennessee is a place that people need to pay attention to. Appreciate that you're doing this. Appreciate that you're running. MaryamForCongress.com is the website, and you're at Maryam for TN on Twitter, and
Yes.
Maryam for Congress on the other social media platforms. Anything else you want to let people know about your campaign before we let you go here?
Sure. Honestly, what this is about is not a vote for me necessarily, because I think if we get out the vote, many of the great candidates this year can win. So I would just say, our voting is so bad in this state. I understand why people are fed up. They're tired. They don't even believe in the system. It's been made very structurally anti-democratic, but we actually do have the votes to bring change if we get that number of people voting out. So if you want to contribute to change in Tennessee, I completely agree that the nation needs to pay attention to what's going on here, because we are at the cutting edge of fighting for this democracy. And a big part of that fight is believing yet again that your vote matters, and that you're organizing to get your friends and family to vote matters. So I appreciate everyone that's in that fight. We can actually do this, and we will, but it's not just me, it will take all of us.
Thanks for joining us, Maryam. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Take care. So that is Maryam Abolfazli, running for Congress in my district, Tennessee's 5th, against Andy Ogles, Pinocchio Ogles, Tennessee Santos, all kinds of names for him, just to refresh your memories. Again, a guy who was busted lying on his resume in so many different ways. He was out there basically saying he was a cop, literally, when he was like a volunteer Williamson County deputy, like probably maybe, if anything, like, probably did some traffic duty, at Harlansdale Farm or something like that. Like, this isn't a guy that did anything remotely related to real police work, yet he was literally running for Congress telling people, I used to be a cop. That's the kind of guy. One of my favorite details about him, he said he went to Vandy, but he didn't. But not only did he say he went to Vandy, he was running a 21,000 person Vandy alumni group, but didn't go to Vandy. He like did some business executive program, God knows how, like probably 1 hour or something. But he was out there saying he went to Vandy. Phil Williams blew up that story. He's still out there being a buffoon. This was him yesterday. And, Andy is just a guy who has no interest in bringing us together. He is as extreme as it gets. And, when you say make America great again, I think we need to make America a place where doing the things that Andy has done is disqualifying, not resume builder for Republicans. And, it's a sad situation that, he's again going to be the nominee and potentially our congressman. If you can't bring yourself to meet with the Covenant families after what happened with the Covenant shooting, you're not representing people. And I think it really says a lot. And he really has not been held accountable for that. I think he maybe alluded to the fact that he took some meeting with someone somewhere, but we talked to Covenant families a lot, and he certainly did not show up for them when they needed their representatives to show up for them. And so now Maryam is running to replace him, and she is part of a whole crop of candidates that are jumping in to replace people who are not representing their constituents. So Maryam for Congress is where you can find her. Go check her out, chip into her campaign, support her, and we'll see you next time.